Hello there folks, back again for another video, and in this one we're going to see the results of that 7-day challenge. As you can see, one of those miniatures didn't get painted, but that's because my strategy was kind of awful towards the end, I suppose. But anyway, let's dive into it and just have a chat about it and what I thought about it as a whole. So yeah, started off the challenge. Well, actually, for anyone who doesn't know, go back and watch the other video, I guess, from last week, where I talked about the challenge and what I was going to do. But essentially, I was getting a little bit bored of doing batch painting of miniatures, and so I decided to try and spice things up by spending my entire hobby session during a day painting one miniature from beginning to end. Okay? This was something that was inspired by Eons of Battle. You can go and check out links to all that stuff down below and that kind of thing. But the whole idea was to sort of get myself back into the mindset of painting characters, and also to break up some of the monotony that comes with doing batch painting of miniatures, really. And so it was a bit different, but it was fun diving into it and seeing what the results were. So day one, I dived in and I painted up Prince Imrahil, as you can see here. So it was a pretty simple start to the week and the challenge as a whole. A lot of metal, really. So that was a lot of your kind of standard bolt gunny lead belcher style metal on the guy. There was a mixed couple of different blues in there as well. There was also a bit of highlighting with, I want to say, Runefang steel for the armor, because I've always thought that Dol Amroth had a little bit more of that kind of Valiant Knight thing rather than Grim Dark. I left the chainmail, although you can't necessarily see it too much. I left the chainmail darker and then sort of highlighted up the metal itself for the plates and things. The white here was actually done with, and this has become quite a favourite of mine actually, which we'll talk about in a second as well. Not that one. There we go. Wraithbone, which is a base paint. And I think it actually works quite nicely to kind of do like a nice off-white actually. Takes about 2 coats to get it down, especially over a highlight and stuff. But yeah, so it was just washed and then brought back up with a bit of highlighting here and there. Did the basing, and away we go. So that was day one, which was Prince Imrahil. The next day, we did ghan-buri-ghan, which was this chap here. So something a little bit different from what we did with Imrahil. It was fun just working on flesh tones and sort of trying to get a little bit of the detail into the face, so doing things like a little bit of war paint marking there. And I think it came out quite nicely. I think it's quite similar to the Games Workshop versions of them, really. It was kind of fun working on that and doing, again, something a little bit different. Didn't take too long to paint, actually, which was always quite nice. And, yeah, finished up very well. The next day was Sharky. So day 3, Sharky. So I've had this miniature in my collection for a little while, and so it was nice to get it painted up because it's one of the final character models that I've got left over from the essentially a large selection of the old battle games in Middle-earth magazine fodder, essentially. And so it was really nice to get my hands on this model and get it painted up. And I've always enjoyed the Scouring of the Shire as a concept and part of the books and stuff. So getting Sharky painted up was really nice. Again, went for, well, it was Rakarth flesh on the cloak and stuff. And then the beard was done again with Wraithbone, which I think really works quite nicely. And is kind of how I think I'd approach painting Saruman now if I was working on him rather than using the grey and Rakarth that I was using in previous versions of the model. But there we go. So Sharky came together quite nicely. Again, fairly easy paint job for that one. The next one was Isildur, painted up for the Last Alliance. I'd seen a lot of versions of this model. I'd seen a lot of versions of this model, and a lot of the time it just looked a bit messy. I don't know what it is really, but there's a lot of little tiny details that you need to get right. So you need to do all of the trim on his tabard there, and obviously you need to work in a little bit more highlighting for the metal, and I've got to get that face looking just right. But I think it came out quite nicely. Again, very similar, I think, to the Games Workshop scheme and how they approach painting it. Although I know they've done a little bit of extra gold work on the armor itself, but I thought that came out quite nicely. And definitely one of those things that made me think, oh man, wouldn't it be cool to do Last Alliance? What did we do next? Then we did this Easterling Captain. Now, I'm kind of happy with him, although there is something I would definitely do extra. So he wasn't too hard to paint because it's just a lot of red and a lot of gold, really. But I would go in and I would highlight up the red again on his cloak and his sort of the undergarments. I would do more. I'd do a brighter red on there, I think. A little bit like what we saw here with Isildur. So I'd kind of get it up to that red, which is Mephiston, which goes over Khorne as the base there. Mainly just because I think it looks a little bit bland. And if he's going to be a character sort of chieftain for your army, I think you need to put a little bit of extra effort in. So I would definitely do that. And it wouldn't take too long to do because red highlighting is usually pretty good, pretty easy to do. So he was another one of my conquests. And then day 6, and here's where I messed up a little bit. Day 6, I did possibly the easiest model to paint, which was the Witch King of Angmar, who still needs a little bit of tidying up around the back. I'm going to do this live. Brr, messing with things. Get it other way around. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. Just do a little bit of tidying up. Boom. So yeah, I did the Witch King. This was pretty simple. It was black undercoat, followed by a dry brush of grey. I went for grey because I think it looked a bit more evil. And then did a coat of lead belcher over the metal. And then a wash of Nuln Oil, and that was pretty much it, really. And he was ready and raring to go. So it looked pretty fun on the tabletop, chasing down an Eowyn or two. And then the last day was meant to be Haldir, but things got in the way. Real life got in the way. You know, I'm not going to cheat and say that I managed to get all of it done and all that kind of good stuff. I had a good run for 6 days, and then real life happened. I have to go somewhere else, have to do lots of things, and hobby just takes a back seat. And so what I should have done is I should have made Haldir my 6th day project, because I would have had plenty of time to paint him up. And then the 7th day would have been the easy project, which would have been the last one, which would have been the Witch King of Angmar, because it would have taken no time at all to get him ready for the tabletop. But I think if I'd thought about that a little bit more in the round, I think I would have been able to get all 7 of them painted. I think the main thing about this was that it was quite fun to then look back over the week and be like, oh wow, I've actually got 7 characters done. Well, 6 characters done in this case. You know, a set of characters that could lead the way for your armies on the tabletop. And in a game where heroes are, you know, front and center of a lot of the action, it's nice to have these options here, so you can then build up your plastic collection or whatever you want to do in order to build up your force in more detail. The actual process of painting them over one day, or at least one hobby session, I think was a bit different, because it was very much a kind of, you paint for a bit and then you stop and you do something else and then you come back and you do the rest of the next step of it. Because, for example, let's use Saruman, Sharky as a guide. I did all the base coating. That was it, done. Then I added the wash, and you can't do anything to the model while the wash is drying. So essentially I was spending another hour just going off and doing something else, watching a bit of telly, doing a bit of extra work or whatever, you know, especially if it was over lunch break. I'd do the base coats at lunch and then go away and come back after work to finish off the model, you kind of thing. And then you do the highlighting, and then it comes to the basing. And then with the basing, you've got to get down the, in my case, I put down the Sterling mud. And then you've got to wait for that to dry. Then you put the PVA on. Then you've got to put the glue. Then you've got to put the tufts. Then you've got to do the rimming. So, you know, something that in a normal painting session, while that guy was drying, or while that guy's wash was being done, you might move on to other miniatures and get them done in the time that you would have been doing that. But that's, again, batch painting. Essentially, for me, though, I think it was a really nice kind of meditative exercise in many ways, because you just sort of get to do a little bit of a model, get it to a stage that you felt happy with, and then move on and do something else. It was also nice to go through so many different models. So, for example, I mean, as I mentioned at the beginning, Imrahil was just a lot of metal and that bright blue and everything like that. And then I was going for something way more subdued and natural looking when it came to ghan-buri-ghan. And suddenly you were changing your painting, you were changing on what you were working with. Again, more natural colours with Sharky, lots more metallics with the Easterling Captain, a little bit of both when it came to Isildur. I still have Elendil sort of waiting in the wings. Let's see if I can grab Elendil. He comes, here's my Elendil. Unfortunately, he has a broken sword, which is a real annoyance for me. I might just paint him up with the broken weapon, you know, and just say that it's already been smashed by Sauron in the struggle or something like that. I think that might be the way to go, really. Unless I can find a way to kind of bodge his sword, I guess. But yeah, I never just managed my time better. As I said, I think I would have been able to get Haldir done and then finished off the 7 days with the Witch King. It was cool that a bunch of people followed along with it as well. That was quite nice to see. So hopefully you can tell me about the sort of successes you had with your own collection. I did, well, this was meant to be a way for me to sort of cut through some of my collection and make make a dent in it. But I also then picked up Eladan and Elrohir here as well. So there's Eladan and Elrohir, ready to be used as part of an elven warband. I may have thought of a cool design for a warband of them, but I'm not sure what's going to be next. I think I might leave Eladan. As much as I want to paint Eladan and Elrohir, I think I should probably get back to some batch painting now, I think. But anyway, that's my kind of hobby thoughts and the end of that 7-day challenge, as it were. I think it sort of came together quite nicely in the end, really. And it was just a little bit of fun. I would heartily recommend doing something like this if you are seeking to kind of get back a little bit of that hobby mojo in your life and take a break from the batch painting, because that can really get to you. But yeah, that's the results, and you know, a little bit of a hobby update at the same time. Hopefully folks enjoyed that little bit of a detour from our normal content and stuff. And yeah, like, share, comment, do all that good stuff. And I'll be back with another video very soon. Yeah, maybe more challenges. We shall see. Cool. Awesome stuff. Make sure to do all that stuff, as I mentioned. You know, commenting, liking, and we'll be back with another video very, very soon. Bye.